This is Newsmax TV. I'm Ashley Martella. We're pleased to be joined by Andrew Napolitano. The former New Jersey Superior Court judge is the senior judicial analyst for Fox News Channel. In addition, he's the regular fill-in host on the Glenn Beck program. Mr. Napolitano also was an adjunct professor at Seton Hall University for 11 years. He is the New York Times best-selling author of 5 books on the U.S. Constitution, the latest entitled Lies the Government Told You, Myth, Power, and Deception in American History. Welcome to Newsmax, Judge.
Good to be with you, Ashley.
We'll talk a little bit about that book, but first, some important constitutional questions have arisen from the Democrats' healthcare overhaul. Since you're a constitutional expert, maybe you can shed some light on some of this stuff for us. Many states are already challenging this legislation in a couple of areas. The first is the forced purchase by virtually all Americans of federal government-approved health insurance. Attorneys general and others note the 10th Amendment says powers not specifically granted to the federal government in the Constitution are reserved for the states and the people. To the layman, that sounds like they have a pretty good argument. What do you say, Judge?
Well, they have a couple of good arguments. The attorneys general are basically representing their state governments, and the Constitution does not authorize the Congress to regulate the state governments. Nevertheless, in this piece of legislation, the Congress has told the state governments that they must modify their regulation of certain areas of health care, they must surrender their regulation of other areas of health care, and they must spend state taxpayer-generated dollars in a way that the Congress wants it done. That's called commandeering the legislature. That's the Congress taking away the discretion of the legislature with respect to regulation and tax paying and spending taxpayer dollars. That's prohibited by a couple of recent Supreme Court cases. So on that argument, the attorneys general have a pretty strong case, and I think they'll prevail. The other constitutional issues have to do with privacy, the federal government getting between you and your physician, and the notion, as you said in your question, of the Congress ordering human beings to purchase something that they might not want, might not need, might not be able to afford, and might not want. That's never happened in our history before. My gut tells me that, too, is unconstitutional because the Congress doesn't have that kind of power under the Constitution.
Another issue, unfunded mandates, including the dramatic expansion of Medicaid and special deals where people in one state pay for those in another to get a special exemption they're not getting. Please sort that out for us.
That's a very unique and tricky constitutional problem caused by the Democrats themselves, by the sweetheart deals, some would say bribes, that they gave to certain senators in order to win their vote. Now, these sweetheart deals have all taken on a life of their own because they have sort of kitschy names, like the Louisiana Purchase, which is really $100 million to pave highways in Louisiana to win Senator Landrieu's vote. The Cornhusker Kickback, which is really several $100 million of Medicare relief to the state of Nebraska in order to win Senator Ben Nelson's vote. The Gatorade exception, which excludes 5 counties in Florida from any change in Medicare regulation in order to win Senator Bill Nelson's vote. There's a half dozen of these things. Here's the question. Do these benefits to these states, I've just chosen 3, Louisiana, Nebraska, and Florida, treat the states differently? Of course they do. And doesn't the Equal Protection Clause of the Constitution require the government to treat similarly situated persons and things, individuals in the states and the states themselves, in a similar way? Of course it does. So these bennies or bribes, whatever you want to give them, or horse trading as it used to be called, clearly violate equal protection by forcing people in the other states to pay the bills of the states that don't have to pay what the rest of us do.
Michigan Representative Dave Camp on the Ways and Means Committee says the fact that Obamacare exempts union members from the Cadillac tax while taxing everyone else leaves that vulnerable to a constitutional challenge on the grounds of unequal protection under the law. Is that right?
Same argument as the Cornhusker Kickback and the Gatorade exemption and the Louisiana Purchase. The government cannot draw a bright line with fidelity to the Constitution and the law, on one side of which everybody pays, and on the other side of which some people pay. It can't say, here's a tax, but we're only going to apply it to non-union people. Here's a tax, we're only going to apply it to graduates of Ivy League institutions. The Constitution does not permit that type of discrimination. So either the tax will be applied to everyone, including the union members who support this government, or the tax will be removed from everyone else so that everyone will be treated the same as the union members, in which case the government will have to print money, borrow money, raise some other tax, or the whole scheme will collapse if the court does that.
All right, is overall government regulation of health care in accordance with the Constitution?
Absolutely not. The Supreme Court has ruled that in areas of human behavior that are not delegated to the Congress in the Constitution and that have been traditionally regulated by the states, the Congress can't simply move in there. And the states for 230 years have had near exclusive regulation over the delivery of health care. The states license hospitals, the states license medications, the states license health care providers, whether they're doctors, nurses, or pharmacists. The feds have had nothing to do with this. The Congress can't simply wake up one day and decide that it wants to regulate this. I predict that the Supreme Court will invalidate major portions of what the president just signed into law for the reasons we've been chatting about.
All right, in your book, it seems as though you blast just about anybody and anything connected with the U.S. government from the founding of the nation up to the present. Do you think the Constitution is flawed, Judge, or has this just been not followed properly?
I think the Constitution is a great document. Now, the original Constitution, of course, had flaws in it because there were 3 areas that provided for and supported slavery. Obviously, that's all been changed by the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments and even subsequent amendments and litigation. The problem with the Constitution is not any structural problem. The problem with the Constitution is that those who take an oath to uphold it don't take their oath seriously. Example. Just a month ago, in interviewing Congressman Jim Clyburn, who's the number 3 ranking Democrat in the House, I said to him, Congressman Clyburn, can you tell me where in the Constitution the Congress is authorized to regulate health care? He said to me, Judge, most of what we do down here, referring to Washington, is not authorized by the Constitution. Can you tell me where in the Constitution it is prohibited for the government to regulate health care? Now, the first part of that statement is a regrettable but candid acknowledgement that the people in the Congress don't take their oath seriously. Most of what we do down here is not in the Constitution. But the second part of that is even more troublesome. If he thinks that the Congress can do all that which is not prohibited, he's turning the Constitution on its head. Because the Congress is not a general legislature. It was not created in order to right every wrong. It exists only to legislate in the 17 specific, discrete, unique areas where the Constitution has given it power. All other areas of human behavior are reserved for the states. The problem comes about when people like Congressman Clyburn, and candidly, Ashley, they are in both parties, they're not just Democrats, think that they can legislate in any area of human behavior as long as they can get away with it politically. They don't take their oath to the Constitution seriously. They don't recognize restraints on their power. They reject Jefferson's argument in the Declaration of Independence that our rights come from our Creator. Therefore, they're natural rights. Therefore, they can't be legislated away. They think they can legislate on any activity, regulate any behavior, tax any person or thing as long as the politics will let them survive. They're wrong, and with this healthcare legislation, they may be proven wrong in a very direct and in-your-face way.
You refer to Social Security as a Ponzi scheme and its chief founder, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, as its principal swindler. You also argue that Social Security is unconstitutional and that it violates the Due Process Clause of the Fifth Amendment. Please explain this for us.
Sure. Social Security basically takes money from one person and gives it to another. The Constitution doesn't authorize the Congress to do that. The Due Process Clause says if the government wants your liberty or your property, it must demonstrate that you have violated a principle of law and then sue you for it. It can't just enact legislation and take you from it. Remember, Social Security has never been called a tax. Whatever it is, it takes money from you and gives it to other people. It takes in less than it gives away. It's Bernie Madoff to a grand scheme of the government taking from one generation and giving to another. As the receiving generation grows and as the giving generation shrinks, the government is engaged in a classic Ponzi scheme. Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid. Whenever the federal government takes money from one individual to give to another, it violates the Constitution because that behavior on the part of the government is authorized nowhere in the Constitution. And the folks who took up an oath to uphold it don't care about the oath and don't care about the Constitution. They just want to get reelected. That's why they just keep giving money away.
In light of everything you wrote about in your new book and considering all that Congress has passed over the last few years, including the massive record debt, do you agree with those who argue that we're in danger of becoming a banana republic?
I think we're in danger of becoming a fascist country, which I define as private ownership but government control. We see that already with the banks. We're about to see it with the insurance companies. Socialism is government ownership and government control. We are $14 billion in debt. The government doesn't have the money to own anything, but it has the force and the threat of violence to control just about anything it wants. That will rapidly expand under President Obama unless and until the midterm elections give us a midterm correction, which everyone seems to think, and I'm in that group, is about to come our way.
Again, the title of Judge Andrew Napolitano's new book, Lies the Government Told You. Judge, thanks so much for spending time with us here, and we'd like to repeat to all our Newsmax viewers that you can catch him regularly on the Fox News channel. Thanks a lot and good luck, sir.
Thank you, Ashley.
And thank you for watching Newsmax TV. Sarah Palin's new book, Going Rogue in American Life, will be released on November 17th. You can be among the first to get your copy. Check out our incredible free offer for Sarah's new book. Just go to Newsmax.com and click on the top banner for this great offer. Act today.